let's get to the rankings for week 12. We've
Mhm.
talked about the teams that are on a bye already. Just to recap real quick: Bengals, Bills, Falcons, Jaguars, Jets, Saints. That is a lot of
Lots.
fantasy assets for us. So who
Yep.
moves up the charts at quarterback?
Prepare to get excited, Lindsay Rhodes, but Justin Herbert is the QB4 this week. Bo Nix,
You don't
QB6.
You don't
QB6.
know that, my friend.
Whatever. I've got Bo Nix ranked very highly, and I've got Tua Tagovailoa at QB8. So he is broken into the top 10 this week based on a matchup against the Patriots defense that gave up 4 touchdown passes to Matthew Stafford last week.
Who is falling out of our graces, our good graces this week?
Yeah, Geno against the Cardinals, who have allowed the fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks in the last 4 weeks. So Geno's dropped out of the top 15. Your buddy Sam Darnold is at QB 17. Not a great matchup this week against Chicago on the road. Russell Wilson, even though you say, well, it's the Browns, he's at QB 16. But once again, the weather outside could be frightful in Cleveland. So Russell, who was in my top 12 last week and kind of disappointed to saw with a stinker against the Ravens, he's been demoted somewhat in my rankings.
All right, let's talk about some running backs here.
Let's do that.
I mean, and we're going to preface this by saying you're playing everybody. Like everybody was a name that you probably have to play. But in the off chance that you have, 3 or 4 good running backs on your roster that don't have buys, then here's how you should evaluate them.
This week is rough, and I said that with stardom and situm because and mostly at running back and wide receiver, because a lot of the players that I put in there, you got to play. I mean, and I'm going to mention a couple of these guys, when we're talking about the running back fallers, but we'll talk about the running back risers first. And obviously, I've got Isaiah Pacheco ranked as if he is going to play this week. So I have Pacheco ranked in my top 15. He is at number 11 right now. Rachaad White against the Giants, even though we are expecting Mike Evans to return, I have him at running back 13. And Brian Robinson, who is coming off of a pretty good game this past week against the Eagles, he gets my beloved but awful Dallas Cowboys run defense. He is at RB12 this week.
Will he give us a Joe Mixon-like performance?
I don't know about that, but I think he can get you into the end zone and secure you 80-plus yards. So I think it'll be a pretty good game. The fallers, now this is where all 3 of these guys, Lindsay, everyone's got to play them, I would think. Tony Pollard is RB25. I am worried about him being 100% or not close to it. Let's put it that way. And the matchup's not great. Aaron Jones has not been great the last 3-4 weeks. He's been very mid. He's at RB22, even though the matchup's pretty good against Chicago. And then Chuba Hubbard, who I've had in my top 10 to 12 for a lot of the season, once he started to emerge as that guy in Carolina, I've got him at RB16. I hate the matchup. Again, and I hated the matchup last week. James Cook did something that most running backs do not do. Put up a 19-point performance on 27 total yards of offense. He scored a couple of touchdowns. He had 5 catches for 7 yards. It was like the weirdest stat line ever. Mm-hmm. So really, Chuba Hubbard is going to have to score a touchdown or maybe 2 to give you a respectable stat line if the trend of the Chiefs defense being very stubborn against running backs continues.
Important to note, though, him as a faller still puts him at RB16.
6 teams off. Yep.
Right. Yep. Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, it's all relative in terms of the types of running backs that you have to play. This is a downgrade, lower your expectations, but still he's in the RB2 category. So he's not going to your bench or anything like that. It's just, and by the way, I mean, I would have to see several very poor performances from Chuba Hubbard to put him on my bench, because he's been in bad matchups this year and in bad, scripts, and still he's been getting it done for us. So very interesting points there. Wide receivers, who's in a better than normal situation this week?
Jackson Smith and Jigba's had 2 very good games in a row. He's up to wide receiver 15. Juwan Jennings, a favorite of Lindsay Rhodes, is at wide receiver 19. I have him ranked ahead of Deebo Samuel, by the way.
Jumping in real quick. Juwan Jennings, number 3 in target share in week 11. upwards of 30%. Third, only after Brock Bowers and Cooper Kupp. And number 3 in first read rate behind Bowers and Pickens. Juwan Jennings had a first read rate in that, and we talked about this on the live stream, and trying to reframe Juwan Jennings in your brain. Now that he is in that Niners offense and playing the role that he is, even with Deebo Samuel and even with CMC back in the backfield and all of this kind of stuff, like Juwan Jennings is a priority in that offense, and there are some hard and fast numbers to further prove that point.
And then finally, Ladd McConkey. I've got him at wide receiver 23, and I might move him up. I currently have George Pickens ranked pretty prominently, and I have Jerry Jeudy at 21, but I'm going to continue to watch that weather. And if it's real bad, I'm going to be dropping these guys in my rankings. You're probably still going to have to start them regardless, just to let you know, to keep tabs on the updates throughout the rest of today and tomorrow leading into the Thursday night game. The fallers, some of Lindsay's favorites. Well, Tank Dell he's at wide receiver 33. I don't love him this week. Deebo behind Juwan Jennings at wide receiver 26. And even though I love Jaden Reed and the matchup's not great, San Francisco's not as good against slot receivers as they are against the perimeter, but I still have Jaden Reed drop down to wide receiver 25. He scored a touchdown last week and still had like a very mid stat line in fantasy. All right, dirtbags, let's talk about other ways to play fantasy football. Do you guys know about PrizePicks? It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks.
You can turn your hot takes into cash. Fabs, listen here to figure out which players have the best matchups of the week. We always talk about guys that we like more or less depending on their matchup. Then take that information and flip on over to PrizePicks. See if you think that those players that we talked about will have more or less than the numbers that they have attached to them. It could be number of catches. It could be number of yards. It could be number of touchdowns. You can do it all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick and easy. And if you have a strong take about a guy that you don't have on your fantasy team, this is the place to put that take to work for you. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code FANTASYDIRT and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FANTASYDIRT on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need a win to receive the $50 bonus. It's like free money, guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Tight ends, risers.
Ready?
Who's taking off? So to speak.
Fire the dismissal. Tight end 8 this week. He's in the top 10. I had him at 10 last week, so he's moved up to 8. He continues to rise as a missile continues to, rise and ascend. Yeah. Jonnu Smith, tight end 11 this week after having 2 touchdowns last week against the Raiders. And this week he's got New England, who gave up a touchdown to Colby Parkinson this past week. And then, you ready for this one? Luke Schoonmaker. Hello now, tight end 13 against the Commanders. He is going to get targeted a ton, maybe not a ton, but significantly enough where he's going to be a back-end tight end 1 during Buymageddon with the expectation that Jake Ferguson will not play.
Who's falling?
Pat Freiermuth, he's down to tight end 20. Dalton Schultz is at tight end 17. Even though there's 6 teams off, he's not even mid. He's kind of cringy at this point. And then Tucker Kraft, tight end 14. Really bad matchup against the Niners. They were very tough against tight ends. We're going to talk about that tomorrow and start them and sit them.